It was pitch black, and nothing could be seen. It had been 3 days. Having only drunk a little water, his body was extremely weak. He could hear people talking, but the only information he could catch were words like Hokage-sama, demon, and savior. His current identity was that of a Hyuga clan ninja who was supposed to have died on the front lines. The caged bird seal had already activated, destroying the original owner's eyes and brain nerves. Fortunately, he had transmigrated and taken over this body, replacing the original owner's identity. He was then discovered in a pile of corpses. He thought he was rescued, but unexpectedly, his entire body was placed under a restriction, and it had been like this until now. The only information he could currently confirm was that he was still in Konoha. And the caged bird seal on his body had disappeared along with the destruction of his eyes. Suddenly, there was the sound of a door opening, and someone approached him, tearing off the bandages from his mouth. Jin let out a long sigh, feeling his breathing become much smoother, though his hands and feet were still bound, and his vision remained completely dark. Sizzle *** a match was lit, and tobacco burned. "Who are you?" Hiruzen Sarutobi, the speaker, had a calm and deep voice. Jin was startled. "The Third Hokage." His mind raced, and he asked, "Hokage-sama, have I done something wrong?" A moment later, the person nearby spoke. "When did you develop those terrible thoughts?" Jin looked bewildered. What terrible thoughts? The person in front of him seemed to be smoking, and after a while, he heard him say, "In 1 month, you will frame Hayashi Hyuga and successfully ascend to become the Hyuga clan head." Jin was instantly stunned. 1 month later, he would kill Hayashi Hyuga. He would become the Hyuga clan head. He was only 13 years old, a mere chunin, and now he didn't even have his Byakugan. How could he possibly do that? 6 months later, you will collude with Orochimaru and help him ascend to the Hokage position. After that, you will scheme for me and Orochimaru to fight each other, allowing you to reap the benefits and completely control Konoha. Minato also died by your hand. I'd like to ask you, Hyuga-jun." The questions, one after another, grew deeper, and their content made Jin's heart tremble more and more. "Are you, the current you, a scourge to Konoha?" Silence. The dark world was suffocating, and he could only remain silent. "Hokage-sama, can you foresee the future?" Hiruzen Sarutobi did not answer his question but continued to question. "Let me ask you, why did you do this?" Such a question was impossible to answer. Jin felt a thick shadow cast over his heart. After a brief moment of dead silence, Jin's voice rang out again. "Hokage-sama, I don't understand what you mean. I was just on a reconnaissance mission and encountered many enemy ninja. All my teammates sacrificed themselves." The person nearby seemed to stand up, and after a moment of silence, he said, "You refuse to speak." He seemed to have lost his patience. The room door closed again, plunging from darkness into darkness. Jin's heart sank further and further, and he could only await judgment. After an unknown period of silence, he heard rustling voices again, a buzzing clamor, as noisy as white noise. In his extreme weakness, Jin had lost all concept of time. He felt as if he had just slept, and when he woke up, he heard the door open again. "Who?" Jin spoke weakly. "Minato Namikaze." Jin opened his eyes but could only sketch a vague image of a gentle and kind person in his mind. This must be a kind person. His throat rolled for a while, and Jin said with difficulty, "Lord Minato, I'm dying. Can you give me something to eat?" After a while, an onigiri was fed to his mouth. Jin could only swallow it in small bites. The hunger swept over him, but it also spurred a stronger desire to live. With a little strength, Jin panted slightly, "Lord Minato, did I do something wrong?" "Not yet, not yet." Jin tilted his head up. "Will I do something in the future?" Minato's tone was calm. "The whole world knows about you." Shin remained silent, frozen in place. "The day before you were rescued, those events appeared in everyone's minds out of nowhere. All of them were futures related to you, and we had to doubt their authenticity." "Is that so?" Shin murmured. "Why, only I didn't know." "Did my future self harm many people?" he asked again. Minato was silent at first, then slowly began to recount. "You colluded with Orochimaru, actively sold our intelligence to Iwagakure, allowing Orochimaru to gain enough military achievements and prestige to contend for the Hokage position, yet you caused the deaths of thousands of our comrades. Meaning, this was all my idea, Shin said in a low voice. He was merely a chunin. If he were to work for Orochimaru, he'd likely be looked down upon. Without strength, the only way he could cause such a stir was through scheming. Shin, with eyes devoid of any color, tilted his head back, gazing towards the end of the darkness. If I had died in the last mission, I suppose I would have been a hero. These words seemed to pierce Minato, who clenched his fists, his voice deepening as he questioned, I want to know, will you truly do those things in the future? I don't know. Shin's tone was devoid of emotion, lifeless. Before I was brought back by my comrades, all I thought was that the intelligence my teammates risked their lives for should be useful in this war. They shouldn't have sacrificed in vain. Not long after, he heard Minato's words, they are all heroes. Shin gave a bitter smile, am I the only one who isn't? Receiving no response, he silently curled the corners of his lips, then quickly suppressed it. Third Hokage-sama said that my future self would seize your Hokage position, and even kill you with my own hands in the end. Lord Minato, do you also want to kill me? Minato showed no trace of anger, his demeanor exceptionally steady at this moment. In those memories, the future Shin had aided Orochimaru in ascending to the Hokage position, then further instigated conflict between Orochimaru and the Third Hokage, while simultaneously designing the elimination of many obstacles within the village that threatened him. This included himself, causing him to ultimately stand in opposition to the village, and even Kushina fell into his hands. However, the experience of personally going through it and reading a story were different. Minato harbored no hatred in his heart. If this war were lost, his and Kushina's fate would certainly not be good, perhaps even more tragic. To say that Hyuga Shin was a scourge to the village, those things had indeed not yet happened. Furthermore, in the more distant future, Hyuga Shin had led Konoha to pacify the 5 great nations, elevating Konoha to an unprecedented height, something Minato had never imagined. Perhaps in some aspects, and for some people, Hyuga Shin's existence was a good thing, but it was currently difficult for the Third Hokage to tolerate. Hyuga Shin, do you want to be Hokage? Minato inquired. Shin struggled to sit up. Though he had no sight, he could imagine the other person was currently sitting there, scrutinizing him. He thought of how the person before him was currently at the peak of his popularity, entrusted with the hopes of countless people, bathed in immense radiance. But Shin could not see that radiance, nor was he a single speck within it. I just want to live. Shin's pale eyes moved, but Minato could not discern any emotion. He vaguely felt that if he were forced to discern something, it should only be despair. Such a person, deemed a scourge and a wicked seed, perhaps only by prying into his heart and completely opening him up could his true thoughts be known. But given the treatment he was receiving now, it was not at all what someone who risked their life to bring back intelligence for the village should endure. Even if malice had arisen, it would only have emerged now. If your intentions towards the village are only goodwill, the village will not harm you. I promise you. Minato finally stood up and left the room. Shin only heard a low sentence at the end. You can let Inoichi come in. Inoichi? Yamanaka Inoichi? Yamanaka? Shin immediately realized something. A sound of footsteps approached and stopped right in front of him. What are you going to do? Didn't you guess? A strange voice responded to him. More food was brought to his lips. It might take a while. You're too weak, eat more. Shin, however, spat out the food he had put in his mouth and looked at the unseen person with his pale eyes. In my future, did I kill you? After a moment of silence, Inoichi said, you killed Shikaku. Is that so? Then why don't you kill me? Don't rush, Inoichi said indifferently. You should be executed soon, but before that, I want everything in your mind. New book on the road, please follow up and read. Tender newcomer, join the group to chat. Hokage building. After Minato knocked and entered, he found the 2 advisors, Mitokado Homura and Utatane Koharu, also present. Minato has arrived. Lord Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi spoke to the 2 elders. All right, you can leave now. Mitokado Homura seemed to want to say something but stopped, glanced at Minato, and finally stood up to leave. Minato bowed slightly to the 2 advisors and watched them depart. They came about Dan's matter. Only after the office door was closed did Hiruzen Sarutobi say. Minato was speechless. In the future, besides Hinata Shin, the other person who would assist Orochimaru was Dan's Shimura. The act of selling information to Iwagakure was personally carried out by Dan's Shimura's men. This former teammate of the Hokage desperately wished for the Third Hokage to step down. Now, Dan's Shimura had also been imprisoned. Did you go to see him? Hiruzen Sarutobi asked. The person he referred to was Hinata Shin. Yes. What are your thoughts? Minato pondered. I support the village's decision. Hiruzen Sarutobi gently shook his head. I'm asking for your opinion. Kill, or not kill? His gaze fixed on Minato, he emphasized his words. The memories that appeared out of nowhere in his mind caused Hiruzen Sarutobi extreme pain and disappointment. Orochimaru cared nothing for the lives of the villagers. To be so heartless. Was the position of Hokage truly that important? Those memories only solidified one thing for him. The position of fourth Hokage could only be held by Minato. He did not regret choosing Minato. Minato was just too young and would fall into their trap in the future. As long as he cleared all obstacles for him this time, it would be fine. After a moment of silence, Minato asked, Lord Hokage, how do you plan to deal with senior Orochimaru? Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression froze, his face grim. Let's talk about Hinata Shin's matter first. Does Lord Hokage believe that Hinata Shin is the source of all disaster? Hiruzen Sarutobi's eyes flickered, and he finally said, anyone who harms the village, I will not let them go. I think we should wait for Inoichi's results first, Minato said. He doesn't seem to know the future. If it's truly a threat, the sooner it's eradicated, the better. Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression was stern. Not only do people want to kill him, but there are also those who don't want him dead. His existence will bring endless trouble. Minato was stunned and couldn't help but ask, who? He stopped halfway through his sentence, as if he had guessed the answer. As he was lost in thought, the office door was suddenly violently kicked open, and a graceful figure burst in, full of anger. Lady Tsunade, please wait a moment. Where is Hinata Shin? The first words of the young blonde woman upon entering were a demand. Is he dead? Hiruzen Sarutobi coughed heavily and waved for the guards who followed her in to leave. Tsunade's expression softened slightly when she saw Minato was also there. Minato is here too. Minato smiled and greeted her. Lady Tsunade. Tsunade then impatiently shouted at Hiruzen Sarutobi, I'm here to ask about Hinata Shin. Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression was calm at this moment. The village has its own decision. Tsunade's face immediately turned cold. Why keep such a guy alive? It was no wonder she was so enraged. In the future she had learned of, she would become Hinata Shin's plaything. And everyone in the world would know about it. How could she accept that? Coupled with the fact that this Hinata Shin had harmed the Third Hokage and Jiraiya, people she was close to, Tsunade harbored no goodwill towards this person she had never met. Lady Tsunade, Minato said, stepping in. The future has not yet happened, and we cannot judge a person based on it. Moreover, since we know the future, those events are no longer set in stone. The current Hinata Shin is still a comrade in the village. Comrade? This simple word rendered the other two present speechless. Hiruzen Sarutobi quickly said again, you don't need to concern yourself with Hinata Shin's affairs. Also, Tsunade, since you're back, don't leave again. The village will need you after some time. Tsunade's expression became more serious, and she frowned, asking, what do you mean? You'll know in a few days. Hinata Shin felt as if he was constantly falling into an abyss without a bottom. Endless viscous substances wrapped around him, rendering him powerless. In a daze, it seemed as if a giant hand was manipulating this world, pushing aside all obstacles, intending to grasp him entirely. Shin felt that if the other party succeeded, everything about him would be seen through and known. That hand was a cage he could never break free from. This instilled a trace of fear in Shin's heart. He couldn't call for help, couldn't escape, and could only watch as it brushed past him each time, and then drew closer by another inch. He seemed to hear his own heartbeat, in this bottomless abyss, so slow it was almost suffocating, yet it deafened his ears. That giant hand, for the last time, precisely grabbed towards him, covering everything without leaving any room. tightly gripping him in its palm and slowly lifting him up. And in that instant, the giant hand boomed and dissipated. A white, bright light seemed to pierce through this black abyss, coloring everything around it. Shin struggled to open his eyes. Although he still couldn't see anything, his mind was clear. He gasped as if seeing the light of day again. "It's you." Suddenly, Inoichi's surprised and low voice rang out from nearby. Shin was startled. There was a third person? "How did you get in here?" Inoichi questioned again. The person remained silent. Hinata Shin waited for a moment, then sensing something, weakly asked, "Who are you?" "Hinata Hisashi," came the steady and powerful response. Hinata Shin slightly curled his lips. "Why are you here?" "To save you." Inoichi, standing beside them, said sternly, "Hinata Hisashi, you're crazy. Daring to defy the Hokage's orders. This guy is a wanted criminal of the village." "A wanted criminal," Shin retorted, a mocking smile appearing on his face. "Did I do anything wrong?" Inoichi sneered repeatedly. "You already know in your heart, don't you? The things you did in the future. Does that mean my current existence is wrong?" A look of melancholy crossed Shin's face, followed by numbness. "You saw it, didn't you?" Inoichi frowned. "Saw what?" "My memories." Inoichi snorted, with a hint of regret and annoyance. "Just a little bit more." Shin remained expressionless. Hinata Hisashi, who had been silent, spoke again. "Lord Shin, the Hyuga clan needs you to lead." "What about Hayashisama? Doesn't he want me dead?" "Hayashisama died suddenly at home last night from illness. We haven't had time to report it to the village yet." Inoichi was instantly stunned. You guys." Shin's tone was unusually calm, as if Hayashi's death hadn't shaken him at all. Inoichi was furious and shocked. "Hinata Hisashi, this is rebellion. I'm going to report to the Hokage immediately." He stopped mid-sentence as a short, muffled thud was heard. HH. Inoichi struggled to make a sound, finally collapsing to the ground with a thud. His pressure points were sealed, rendering him immobile and unable to speak. Hinata Hisashi spoke once more. "Lord Shin, please lead the Hyuga clan, just as in the prophecy, to the pinnacle of this world." The prophecy. Shin's expression was solemn. Silence reigned for a long time. "How can I believe you?" Hinata Hisashi silently produced a kunai and fiercely thrust it towards the person on the ground. *Fut*. The sharp object pierced flesh, and warm blood splattered onto Shin's face. He stuck out his tongue to lick his lips, tasting a fishy and astringent bitter flavor. "You dare to attack a comrade of the village?" Shin said indifferently. "Go and confess your sins to the Hokage." Hinata Hisashi knelt on one knee, his head bowed expressionlessly in response. "Yes, new book readership is very important, please don't just save it." In future memories, Hinata Shin had accomplished many things. Among his greatest achievements was the subjugation of the 5 great nations, the reformation of the ninja era, and the establishment of the world's sole empire, dividing the former 5 great nations into 5 great provinces. The status of the Hyuga clan also rose with the tide, becoming the imperial family. If there was anyone in this world who did not wish for Hinata Shin to die, it would undoubtedly be the Hyuga clan first. Hiruzen Sarutobi looked at Hinata Hisashi, who was kneeling before him on one knee, his eyes filled with icy coldness. "What did you say?" Hinata Hisashi lowered his gaze, his face obscured. "Hokage-sama, while investigating Hinata Shin, I unintentionally clashed with Inoichi and accidentally killed him." "You said, killed whom?" Inoichi Hiruzen Sarutobi was instantly speechless, and soon, boundless rage filled his aged face. "Who allowed you to investigate him?" "It was my own decision, and I am here to accept punishment," Hinata Hisashi replied calmly. Hiruzen Sarutobi's eyes widened in anger, grief and rage alternating on his face. He asked in a hoarse voice, "Why did you do this?" "I had a dream, and I believed I saw a more distant future." Hiruzen Sarutobi looked at him expressionlessly, waiting for him to continue. "In the future, there will be an extremely powerful world destroyer, and only Hinata Shin can defeat them and save the world," Hinata Hisashi slowly recounted. After waking up, in my panic, my mind was clouded, and I only wanted to see Shin to confirm, which led me to commit this grave mistake. Yamanaka Inoichi, the new head of the Yamanaka clan, an excellent jonin of the village, Minato's future right-hand man, he died just like that, at the hands of a fellow villager. In my panic, my mind was clouded. Hiruzen Sarutobi could clearly see what lay behind this absurd reason, but even so, he felt a wave of dizziness. A trace of sorrow welled up in his eyes, and he said weakly, "I remember you were from the same graduating class, you fought side by side countless times. Why, did you go this far?" "Yes." Hinata Hisashi lowered his eyes. "I am also deeply pained, and I have come to accept punishment from the Hokage-sama." He had indeed fought alongside him countless times, knowing him since the ninja academy. It was a pity that the one who could truly fight side by side with Shikaku, Inoichi, and the others was his elder brother. He was merely a shadow, occasionally mentioned as Hayashi's brother or that person from the Hyuga branch family. Hiruzen Sarutobi roared, "Intentional murder of a comrade, a capital offense." "A capital offense." Hinata Hisashi remained unmoved, still calmly stating, "I and Inoichi were as close as brothers, and I absolutely did not intend to kill him. However, Inoichi died because of me, and I have nothing to say. I am willing to accept death." Hiruzen Sarutobi waved his hand powerlessly, and two Anbu members appeared out of thin air beside Hisashi, taking him away. Upon hearing the news, Minato quickly rushed to the hospital room. Unfortunately, it was too late. The person on the bed was already covered by a white sheet. Minato froze at the doorway, his entire body turning cold. He walked step by step to the bedside and lifted the white sheet covering the body. There are signs of gentle fist injuries, but he was ultimately killed by a throat slit. Tsunade's figure appeared at the doorway at this moment, saying calmly. Minato turned to look at her in a daze, then looked back at the person on the bed. Seeing him like this, Tsunade's expression suddenly became complex, and she said with a sigh, "The Third Hokage is waiting for you to make a decision, whether to execute Hinata Shin or not." Gentle fist, Hyuga. Minato clenched his fists wordlessly, a trace of grief in his eyes. Tsunade leaned against the doorframe, her arms crossed. All the trouble started because of him. As long as he is killed, all those uncertain futures can be nipped in the bud. If Hinata Shin were executed, perhaps everything would be resolved. Compared to the village, he was just one person, an insignificant one. After a long silence, Minato finally spoke, "I will never do something that puts the cart before the horse. I have my own way of doing things." His voice was incredibly firm, even intensifying. Sacrificing others for the sake of the village was by no means the original intention behind Konoha's founding. It was just that many people had already strayed from this original intention. Tsunade sighed silently, "As you wish." After all, Hiruzen Sarutobi had already chosen Minato. A fool who appears perfect on the outside, yet is extremely idealistic on the inside, Tsunade thought silently. Minato looked at Inoichi Yamanaka lying with his eyes closed, and covered him again with a white cloth. "Inoichi, you won't die in vain, no one dies in vain," he said to himself, as if making a vow. In the Hokage's office, Minato was suddenly summoned again. "This is military intelligence sent by Shikaku from the front lines. The situation is urgent." Minato took the letter handed to him by Hiruzen Sarutobi, reviewed it carefully, and then frowned. "Kumoga Kure, didn't they already withdraw from the battlefield?" The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, said in a deep voice. "It's more than that." As he spoke, he handed over a second letter. They were sent at roughly the same time. Minato scanned it at a glance and instinctively clenched his fist. Tsunaga Kure too. The content of the first letter was that Kumoga Kure had suddenly amassed troops and openly demanded that Konoha immediately execute Hinata Shin, otherwise they would launch another war against Konoha. The second letter was a personal letter from the fourth Kazekage Rosa, whose meaning was similar, regarding Hinata Shin as a scourge of the ninja world and demanding that Konoha deal with him, with threats evident in his words. By now, the Great Ninja War had exhausted the vitality of all the nations, and even one of Minato's own students had been sacrificed in the war. Konoha had originally thought that peace would come as soon as the current war with Iwagakure ended. Hiruzen Sarutobi had already made plans to abdicate once the war ended. What is your decision? Hiruzen Sarutobi stared intently at Minato and asked. It was back to the choice Hiruzen Sarutobi had initially presented to Minato. Hinata Shin, kill or not kill? Minato looked at the two secret letters in his hand, feeling a bit dazed. Iwagakure, Kumogakure, Tsunagakure, Kirigakure may not be making a move now, but they couldn't guarantee what would happen in the future. Could Konoha withstand such pressure? Previously, the demand to kill Hinata Shin stemmed from internal pressure, and Minato felt that a village shouldn't be like this. Now, the ones who wanted Hinata Shin dead were the enemies outside. What are you hesitating about? Hiruzen Sarutobi suddenly asked. Hiruzen Sarutobi let out a cold laugh. Do you think I want to execute Hinata Shin because I believe sacrificing one person can save the village? Minato clenched his fist. Hokage-sama. Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression remained unchanged. Just do what you think you should do, as long as you don't regret it yourself. What about the opinions of the others in the village? Hiruzen Sarutobi's face was grim. I am the Hokage. Just then, an Anbu suddenly appeared beside him with a Shunshin, and whispered a few words in his ear. Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression changed drastically, and he stood up abruptly. Minato was surprised. Hokage-sama. Hiruzen Sarutobi's face was now so dark it looked like it could drip water. Hinata Hayashi has died of a sudden illness at home, and the Hyuga clan demands that all Hyuga clan ninjas on the front lines be recalled to the village to attend the funeral. Last night's autumn rain had left the courtyard carpeted with fallen leaves. An old tree swayed in the wind, its appearance desolate and melancholic. Black cloth hung within the Hyuga clan compound. Hiruzen Sarutobi paused outside the makeshift mourning hall. Many people moved with hurried steps. In the innermost area, a gentle and beautiful woman in black mourning attire knelt. Hiruzen Sarutobi recognized her as the fiancée of Hayashi Hyuga, Ayono Hyuga. It was said she and Hayashi Hyuga had been childhood sweethearts, growing up together. Perhaps, after this war ended, they were to be married. He turned and left, heading towards another residence. Taikyu Hyuga was the father of Hayashi Hyuga and Hisashi Hyuga, the previous clan head of the Hyuga, and currently the only remaining head family member. Hokage-sama. Taikyu Hyuga's aged face was filled with respect as he bowed to the visitor. It's been some time, Taikyu, Hiruzen Sarutobi said calmly, then unceremoniously took the main seat. The Hokage-sama is busy with the war, I wouldn't dare disturb you, Taikyu Hyuga replied with his head bowed, and proactively poured tea for him. White steam curled upwards from the teacup, adding a touch of warmth to the somber interior. The two old men sat opposite each other. It was said that the older a person gets, the kinder they become, and this was true for Taikyu Hyuga. The old man's features were kind, and his aura was not at all aggressive. It should have been the same for Hiruzen Sarutobi, but Taikyu Hyuga felt that the third Hokage's demeanor was colder and harder than before. It was understandable. Suddenly discovering that his trusted confidants were all harboring ulterior motives, those future memories were undoubtedly a wake-up call for Hiruzen Sarutobi. Yes, the war is difficult, many things have been delayed, and many people have slowly drifted apart, Hiruzen Sarutobi said calmly, picking up his teacup and taking a sip. In political affairs, I have the assistance of advisors Homura and Koharu. On the front lines, I have Shikaku, Jiraiya, and Minato. The Hokage-sama is fortunate, Taikyu Hyuga said with a gentle smile. Moreover, Minato is so outstanding, he will surely be able to shoulder great responsibility in the future. Hiruzen Sarutobi put down his teacup and said, whether Konoha has a future remains to be seen. Taikyu Hyuga's expression showed surprise. What does the Hokage-sama mean by that? Hiruzen Sarutobi placed the two secret letters on the low table. Taikyu Hyuga picked them up and read them one by one. Cloud Village and Tsunagakure intend to attack us again. Konoha is already at its limit, and I fear it cannot withstand it. Such a thing, Taikyu Hyuga frowned as he read the contents of the letters. After a long silence, Taikyu Hyuga said again, if sacrificing just one person can bring peace, the Hokage-sama should consider the greater good. Hiruzen Sarutobi glanced sideways. This person is a member of your Hyuga clan, Taikyu Hyuga said with a serious expression, For the sake of the village, the Hyuga clan will not shirk its duty, Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed. The Hyuga clan has suffered a great upheaval. Family matters are important. I have already sent someone to the front lines to deliver a message, recalling all Hyuga clan ninjas to mourn Hayashi Taikyu. Hyuga, however, looked surprised and confused. Why would the Hokage-sama do this? It is precisely when the war is at a stalemate, they should be serving on the front lines. Hiruzen Sarutobi also asked in confusion, didn't you request that all Hyuga clan ninjas be recalled to attend the funeral? Taikyu Hyuga's expression flickered, and he sighed heavily again. I know nothing of this, and it is impossible for me to do something that disregards the greater good. Hiruzen Sarutobi's eyes moved slightly, and he said calmly, oh? I am old and my eyesight is failing. Hayashi's sudden death, and the clan is no longer under my command. You are the head family. Yes, but if I have no voice, then the Hyuga will have no distinction between the head and branch families, won't they? Hokage-sama. Hiruzen Sarutobi tapped the low table lightly with one finger, and after a moment, asked again, then, who is in charge of the Hyuga clan now? Hisashi's abilities are very convincing to everyone, Taikyu Hyuga said. Or perhaps, never mind. He changed his tone, but stopped midway, slowly shaking his head. Hiruzen Sarutobi knew very well which name he was about to say, and inwardly sneered. He wanted to press further and ask, or perhaps who, to break through the unspoken understanding, but after a moment of silence, he suppressed the thought. The current situation simply did not allow him to be impatient. Hiruzen Sarutobi's gaze fell upon the black cloth hanging at the doorway and said calmly, Hayashi was also extremely outstanding among his peers. Taikyu Hyuga merely responded with a Hayashi was his biological son. He should be buried in the resting place of heroes, his name inscribed on the memorial monument. Thank you, Lord Hokage. Hiruzen Sarutobi rubbed his teacup, drank the remaining tea, and placed it back on the table. On the way back, he passed by the place where the mourning hall was being set up. The woman who had been inside earlier now came out and bowed slightly to Hiruzen Sarutobi. Lord Hokage, Ayono Hyuga greeted. There are many clan matters. Hisashi has been missing for 2 days with no trace. If the village has no mission assigned to him, please inform him, Lord Hokage. The family needs him to preside over affairs. Hiruzen Sarutobi's gaze swept over the gentlewoman. Dressed in black mourning attire, with lowered eyes and a sorrowful expression, anyone would feel pity for such a frail woman. He merely gave a faint and left the clan's grounds, which were entirely draped in black. Minato once again arrived at the secret room where Shin Hyuga was held. The Anbu guards here had been replaced, and no one was allowed in or out without the Hokage's permission. Upon seeing the young man again, he was even weaker than last time. An 4 drip was attached to him, and his lips were pale even in the dim room. Is that Lord Minato? The other party seemed to recognize him by his footsteps and spoke first, his voice barely a whisper. Minato did not sit but stood close to him. Lord Minato, can you let me out? Minato's gaze was somewhat complex as he asked, have you already guessed the village's decision regarding you? A look of confusion appeared on Shin's pale face. Didn't Lord Inoichi already view my memories? Shin said bitterly, after viewing my memories, does the village still consider me a threat? Inoichi is dead. Shin's expression froze, and he looked bewildered. Why? He was murdered. Shin couldn't help but ask, but wasn't Lord Inoichi a jonin, an elite ninja of the village? Who could have killed him? Minato's face was filled with sorrow. A jonin, who could kill him? Only when facing a comrade would one let down their guard. After a brief silence in the narrow room, Minato's voice echoed again. No one has seen your memories, but I choose to believe you, because you are a comrade of the village. In the previous mission, you, like your sacrificed teammates, were a hero. Shin, with his hands and feet bound and unable to see anything, listened to the voice from above and responded after a moment of silence. Thank you, Lord Minato. Minato continued, the village also trusts you, Shin. Join my squad and protect the village with me. May I make a request? Shin slowly raised his head, his pale eyes open, as if gazing at Minato. Give me a pair of eyes that can see this world clearly. Chapter 5, Cold Rain. Nohara Rin's medical skills weren't top tier. Among many medical ninjas, she was considered mid to low. After all, she was still young and lacked guidance from an excellent medical ninja teacher. Fortunately, she could still handle battlefield medicine and emergency rescue work. In those future memories, Hinata Shin encountered enemy ninjas during a reconnaissance mission. Everyone except himself died. Nohara Rin and Kakashi went to search and support, finding a severely wounded and near-death Hinata Shin amidst the corpses. Because they were very close to the Iwaga Cure camp at the time, and to avoid the burden of a blind, critically injured person during their breakout, Nohara Rin, after providing Hinata Shin with emergency treatment, gave him a new pair of eyes. They were just ordinary eyes taken from his deceased teammate, yet they made Hinata Shin an anomaly within the Hyuga clan. However, after everyone became aware of those future memories, everything changed. Hinata Shin was brought back by Minato himself, leading a team, and has been imprisoned ever since. When she was suddenly informed that she would participate in Hinata Shin's eye transplant surgery, Rin was a bit bewildered and specifically asked her teacher. "Don't worry, just focus on your own tasks," Minato comforted her. Nohara Rin felt uneasy. She had no idea what had been happening in the village these past few days. However, she learned from Kakashi that Hinata Shin, the person everyone had been talking about lately, was likely facing a dead end. In the future, he had caused the deaths of too many people, including her own teacher. What Nohara Rin found most incomprehensible was that in the future, she herself willingly became Hinata Shin's underground lover. How could that be possible for her? She had wanted to find Kakashi to explain something, but when facing him, she didn't know where to begin. Her feelings seemed to have always been one-sided. In the dense forest on the outskirts of Konoha, Rin, along with several medical ninjas, carrying various medical equipment and tools, entered a hidden underground cave, guided by an Anbu. The light here was dim. As she walked, Rin thought to herself that the place of confinement was truly well hidden, chosen to be outside the village. After walking through stairs and corridors, in a narrow room, she finally saw the legendary person. Demon, savior, scourge, scoundrel, chosen one. These days, various labels had been attached to this person. But what Rin saw was just a scrawny youth, bound hand and foot, with a clear sealing jutsu inscribed on him. His eyes were desolate, appearing to be on the verge of death, with little time left. Rin's heart tightened inexplicably. Was this the youth who instilled fear in so many people? "Hinata Shin, we are here on the Hokage's orders to perform an eye transplant surgery on you." The youth slowly raised his head. A flicker of emotion appeared on his sickly face. His pale lips moved slightly, and he responded in a very soft voice, "Thank you." Inside the daimyo's mansion. Are the Land of Lightning and the Land of Wind truly going to deploy troops against us? Facing the Konoha group, the daimyo of the Land of Fire showed a hint of annoyance. Based on their current movements, the possibility of them withdrawing their troops is slim, Hiruzen Sarutobi replied. The daimyo sighed, saying, "After fighting for so long, I thought it was almost over." "My lord daimyo, it's not that we wish to continue the war, it's their insatiable greed." The daimyo closed his folding fan and tapped it rhythmically in his hand. "That may be so, but you must also consider the nation, that Hinata Shin. How do you intend to deal with him?" Minato Namikaze immediately said, "We have thoroughly interrogated him and confirmed that he poses no threat." The daimyo's movement paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. Minato Namikaze lowered his head and continued, "I will keep him by my side and guide him. My lord daimyo, the future can be changed." The ministers sitting opposite couldn't help but whisper amongst themselves. The daimyo then turned his gaze back to Hiruzen Sarutobi. "Third Hokage, is this your decision?" Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression remained calm. "Hinata Shin, for nearly dying on the front lines while carrying out a reconnaissance mission, is a meritorious individual to Konoha and the Land of Fire. He is a hero. Furthermore, we have seen his memories, and he harbors no ill intentions. Konoha will still regard him as a comrade." The daimyo let out a scoff, seemingly dismissive of these words. He then said, "I recall that Cloud Village and Sand Village have already offered their condition for withdrawal. Simply execute Hinata Shin." Hiruzen Sarutobi, however, said, "My lord daimyo, compromise solves nothing. Our Land of Fire is the greatest nation. When did we ever yield when facing threats? Today they demand the execution of Hinata Shin, and we comply. Tomorrow, what if they demand your abdication? Hokage, how dare you? A minister beside him jumped up, pointing at Hiruzen Sarutobi and shouting angrily. The daimyo did not seem angered. His slightly effeminate face looked at Hiruzen Sarutobi thoughtfully. Third Hokage. He had known this Hokage for a long time and understood his temperament. He had originally thought Hiruzen Sarutobi would, as usual, humbly beg him and offer repeated assurances. But Hiruzen Sarutobi's actions at this moment were quite beyond his expectations, rather resembling Dan's Shimura of Konoha. Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression was stern. I am merely stating facts. By then, if you wish to retaliate, I fear Konoha's ninjas will only remember your decision to sacrifice their comrade for peace. The daimyo glanced sideways. Do you truly consider Hinata Shin a comrade? Hinata Shin would later harm the third Hokage, kill Minato Namikaze, and even seize Minato's lover. The daimyo truly did not believe Hiruzen Sarutobi's words. My lord daimyo, Minato said firmly at this moment, the first Hokage's original intention in establishing Konoha was to protect the people of the village. If the village is protected at the cost of sacrificing one of its own, then only an empty shell is being protected. The daimyo fell silent. He could not truly turn against Konoha. At most, he could only exert pressure. Can you guarantee victory? He asked Minato again, looking at the blonde young man before him. He had heard countless glorious deeds of this young man and knew he was the future pillar of Konoha. Hiruzen Sarutobi calmly retorted, when have we ever lost? Beside the Monument of Souls lay a cluster of graves, known as the resting place of heroes. Heroes who sacrificed for the village in war were buried here. During wartime, many people would come to pay their respects and sweep the graves. However, with the light rain falling today, only two figures were present. An old man with white hair was slowly and meticulously carving a name onto the monument with a delicate carving knife, his expression resolute and serious. The young man beside him held an umbrella for him, patiently watching his teacher perform his craft. Both master and disciple considered it a great honor to personally carve the names of heroes onto the Monument of Souls. The young man also aspired to take over this task from his teacher one day. He watched as his teacher completed the final stroke, wiped it with a damp cloth, and then repeatedly polished it with a dry cloth. Hayashi Hyuga. The young man looked at the newly carved name on the Monument of Souls. He had heard of this name. It belonged to an elder of the Hyuga clan in the village. Furthermore, this name had appeared in future memories, where he was framed by Hinata Shin and Orochimaru for betraying the village's intelligence. He never expected that this elder of the Hyuga family would also die so suddenly in reality. No one from the Hyuga family has come. We did notify them, didn't we? He couldn't help but ask. In the past, when they carved names on the Monument of Souls, relatives and friends would usually come to witness it. The Hyuga clan, a prominent and powerful clan in Konoha, yet not a single person came on such a day. This elder must have been very lonely, the young man murmured again. A point of light suddenly pierced through the boundless dark world. Shin had long forgotten how long he had been dormant here, his soul seemingly drowned at the bottom of an abyss. This long-lost, unfamiliar light intruded without warning, causing him to instinctively feel a sense of panic. But he soon realized he had no reason to be afraid. The light rightfully belonged to him. This darkness was imposed by others. He felt a stinging sensation, originating from his eyes. In an instant, he was back from the abyss to the real world, sensing the flickering of light and shadow through a blurred barrier. You can try opening your eyes, a voice sounded in his ear. Shin opened his eyes. A small, cramped dark room, crowded with several medical ninjas, and an Anbu standing at the entrance. He lay on the bed, taking it all in. Shin did not react much. The medical ninja beside him asked, "How do you feel?" "Very good. It's normal for your eyes to feel pain or discomfort. As long as your vision is not affected, it's fine. It will recover gradually." "Yes, thank you." Shin once again surveyed the people who had just operated on him, his gaze falling upon a petite girl who stood out among the adult ninjas. Observing her appearance and attire, a name quickly surfaced in his mind. Nohara Rin. There was no exchange between the two, and Nohara Rin merely watched him silently. After the leading medical ninja gave a few more instructions, they tidied up the various medical equipment in the narrow room and left together. When the narrow, dim space fell silent once more, another Anbu member entered from the entrance and whispered a few words with the Anbu member guarding the door. Finally, that Anbu member spoke to Shin. Hinata Shin, you may leave now. At this moment, Shin's emotions were exceptionally calm. His figure flickered past the two Anbu members, and he began to walk forward along the passage. His weakened body made every step slow. Suddenly, a burst of light appeared. At the end of the path, endless light poured in, bringing with it the crisp, cool air. Swish *, it was the sound of rain. Shin saw the muddy ground, followed by a forest being drenched by the rain. Countless figures stood neatly in the rain, all wearing pure black robes, like mourning attire. Their bright white eyes watched him, and as he appeared, an infinite eagerness surged forth, like a heat that even the rain could not extinguish. With a swish, all these people knelt on one knee, their heads respectfully bowed. A chill swept over him. Hinata Shin greedily inhaled the air and heard their voices. Lord Shin, in late autumn, the forest had lost its greenery. This neat expanse of black appeared exceptionally solemn and majestic. At the forefront of the kneeling Hyuga clan members stood another person. It was a woman in a black kimono, dignified and gentle, with a beautiful face. She held an umbrella in one hand, her gaze fixed on the young man before her and the dark pupils in his eyes. She stepped forward to Shin, holding the umbrella over his head, and said softly, "Lord Shin, welcome back." Hyuga clan compound. After bathing, Jin lay on the bed, sorting through his thoughts. After returning from the dungeon, he had also learned everything about the future from the Hyuga. His current situation could be described as being on the edge of a cliff. Although Minato had saved him for now, he couldn't place all his hopes on Minato. For a moment, Jin felt that there was too much he needed to do. He could only try his best to save himself. The reason for this was that he was currently too weak. His strength couldn't skyrocket overnight. Without the ability to overturn the table, he could only be at the mercy of others. In those future memories, the fourth Reikage of Kumogakure, the fourth Keizukage of Sand Village, and the third Tsukikage of Iwagakure were all harmed or killed by him. And within Konoha, he had also harmed the third Hokage, Danzo Shimura, Shikaku Noro, Hayashi Hyuga, and others. He had usurped Fugaku Uchiha's wife, Mikoto Uchiha, and exiled Fugaku Uchiha himself to the border. He had forcibly taken Minato's lover, Kushina Uzumaki, imprisoned Minato Namikaze, and finally killed Minato with his own hands. He had taken Tsunade, one of the Sannin, as his forbidden plaything. Counting these achievements, no one in the ninja world had ever reached such a level. It was indeed crazy. He could already foresee the attention and treatment he would receive when he reappeared in everyone's sight. A faint sound of footsteps echoed in the room. Ayono Hyuga entered, carrying a tray. On the tray was a bowl of hot porridge. She sat down on the edge of the bed, stirred the porridge with a spoon, scooped up a spoonful, brought it to her lips, and gently blew on it, tasting the temperature. Ayono Hyuga was around 20 years old, still very young. Perhaps due to her makeup and attire, she exuded a mature and gentle aura. She wore a black kimono, and when she sat down, it highlighted her voluptuous waist and hip curves. This was Hayashi Hyuga's fiancé, the future matriarch of the clan, a person of noble status. At this moment, she appeared docile and submissive, diligently caring for the frail young man on the bed. "How did Hayashi die?" Jin suddenly asked. Ayono Hyuga's beautiful face paused slightly, her eyelashes fluttering. If it weren't for Jin Hyuga, she would have married Hayashi Hyuga smoothly and become a dutiful clan matriarch. And in those future memories, she became one of the women by this young man's side, even giving birth to his daughter. Not everyone in the Hyuga clan viewed those memories as divine revelations. The main family of the Hyuga, the clan head's first reaction upon learning all of that was to have Jin Hyuga killed. Originally, Under the caged bird curse mark, no one dared to defy Hayashi Hyuga's will. But Ayono Hyuga, having been chosen as Hayashi's fiancé since childhood, was not branded with the caged bird seal. Just like the main family, after a moment of silence, she slightly raised her eyes and spoke in a very soft but extremely firm voice. I have followed the divine revelation. Divine revelation? Upon hearing this, Jin's expression became calm. If all of this were truly a divine revelation, that would be for the best. With this kind of information known to the entire world, it would only be a death knell for him. In this almost hopeless situation, Jin suddenly felt like laughing. He was still alive now. As long as he was alive, he was not the one who should truly be afraid. On this day, many Hyuga clan members wanted to visit Jin, but Ayono refused them all, citing that Jin needed rest. However, one person was allowed in. Taikei Hyuga came to give Jin something. This is the method to control the caged bird curse mark. Jin Hyuga looked at the scroll he handed over, lost in thought. Your son died because of me. Taikei Hyuga's expression was complex. People must die eventually. As long as Hyuga stands tall and unwavering, it's fine. You are the person of destiny, and it's not wrong for Hyuga to follow you. Jin lay on the bed, his tone calm. That so-called destiny no longer exists once everyone knows about it. It's still uncertain whether I'll live or die tomorrow. Are you really going to bet the entire future of the Hyuga clan on me? Taikei Hyuga's aged face was silent for a moment, then he said, it's not that I chose you, it's that they chose to follow you. This was also Hisashi's choice, and besides, destiny has always existed. Jin couldn't help but frown inwardly at this. He didn't quite understand the old man's last sentence. But he also understood the purpose of the old man's visit. Looking at the scroll in his hand, he said, Hisashi sacrificed his life to save me, so I will naturally save him. Taikei Hyuga nodded gently and left without lingering. The scroll detailed everything about the caged bird curse mark, including its casting, dispelling, and application. The scroll itself also contained a special sealing jutsu, and shortly after being truly opened and read, it self-destructed. With this, you can completely control the Hyuga clan, Ayono said from the side. Hasn't the Hyuga clan already chosen to follow me? What do I need it for? Jin said indifferently. We must guard against those with ulterior motives, Ayono reminded him. Ulterior motives? Jin glanced sideways. Ayono was stunned. She seemed to understand Jin's implied meaning. Without the caged bird, without hatred, how could Hisashi have taken that step? How could the branch family have so fanatically regarded Jin as a savior god? She looked at the ashes of the scroll in Jin's palm, the source of all hatred. Ayono suddenly stepped forward, leaned over the bed, and cupped Jin's hand. The mature beauty now seemed to press half her body onto the young man. A blush spread across her usually gentle face, her clear eyes flickered with light, and her breathing became slightly heavier, her breath like orchids. Lord Jin, please cast a curse on me. Why? Jin asked. To let you know my true heart. Ayono held Jin's hand and slowly placed it over her heart. Through the fabric, Jin could feel the beating of her heart. Lord Jin. The next day, Minato specifically came to visit Jin Hyuga. Lord Minato. Jin got out of bed and bowed respectfully to greet him. Minato smiled gently. Don't be so formal, you don't need to call me that. Jin shook his head. I respect you in my heart, that's why I want to call you that. Minato pondered. Jin, don't feel like I saved you. The village will not wrong any of its comrades. Jin nodded. Lord Minato, I've heard about everything that's happened these past few days. It's normal for the village to suspect me, and I understand. It's best if you can think that way. Now that the Cloud Village and Sand Village are about to invade again, I need to hurry back to the front lines. I hope you can come with me. Jin looked surprised. Cloud and Sand? Didn't they already withdraw from the battlefield? As he spoke, his expression changed. Could it be, because of me? Minato had been watching Jin's reaction. Hearing this, he comforted him. Don't overthink it. War is never started by just one person. Those are just insignificant excuses. They are the ones who are afraid. Konoha has never lost. Jin lowered his head and said, Lord Minato, I will do as you say. Please follow up. Jin's severe injuries sustained on the front lines had healed under the care of medical ninjas. The primary issue was the decline in bodily functions caused by his time in captivity, requiring a period of recuperation. Iono Hyuga wished for him to rest well within the clan, but Minato was a crucial combat force and spiritual leader on the front lines, unable to remain in the village for an extended period. Jin had no choice but to accompany him back to the front. As they departed the village, he also met all the members of Minato's squad. Hatake Kakashi, Nohara Rin. Kakashi was renowned, bearing labels such as Genius Jonin, Son of White Fang, and Student of the Yellow Flash, drawing much attention in the village. A black mask covered most of his face, and his slanted forehead protector left only his right eye exposed. Previously, Jin had no interaction with this highly acclaimed peer, at most having seen him from afar. However, in the future, Kakashi would become a highly capable subordinate of his. And when Kakashi saw Jin, his gaze became particularly complex. "This is Kakashi, and this is Rin," Minato proactively introduced them to Jin. "Hello, I am Jin Hyuga." Kakashi remained silent, appearing somewhat stern and exuding an aura of unapproachability. "Hello, Jinkuan." Rin, however, took the initiative to speak, though her expression seemed somewhat awkward. "Jin will be a member of our squad from now on, participating in our future actions and missions," Minato stated. Kakashi and Rin were both aware of how special this black-haired youth was, and they understood why their teacher had made this decision. Neither of them harbored any resistance, nor did they feel that Jin's presence was replacing someone. In those futures, their destinies were deeply intertwined. After the four-person squad convened, they exchanged brief greetings before heading towards the northern front lines of the Land of Fire. Silence prevailed throughout the journey. Kakashi was aloof, and this Hyuga Jin also seemed to be a person of few words, with Minato and Rin doing most of the talking. However, due to his physical condition, Jin struggled to keep up with the other three multiple times, causing the entire squad to rest more frequently. Amidst the dense forest, Minato was reading a message delivered by a carrier pigeon and then said to everyone, "There is no active combat on the front lines at the moment, so we will arrive in time tonight." Jin sat on the ground, drinking water. His body had not fully recovered, and this prolonged march was taking its toll. Kakashi then approached, standing beside him. "Is something wrong?" Kakashi gazed at him, pondering. "There's something I want to ask you." Jin stood up and said, "I don't know anything about your missing teammate." Jin had guessed what he wanted to ask. In the future, after he gained power, to eliminate the threats of Obito and Madara, he had Orochimaru intercept Obito and launched a surprise attack on Madara's hiding place. The result was that Black Zetsu escaped, and Madara never reappeared. Thinking about it carefully, Madara at this time was already on his deathbed, sustained only by the Jido Mozo. Perhaps he had died immediately after severing his connection with the Jido Mozo. But now, Uchiha Madara was certainly aware of the future, and the possibility of him passively waiting was extremely small. Upon hearing this, Rin, standing nearby, also showed a look of sadness. She suddenly felt that even if the future had 1,000 bad things, Obito at least returned alive. But now, everything had changed. The group continued their journey, finally reaching the frontline camp in the northern part of the Land of Fire at night. The camp was vast and concealed by a massive barrier from the outside. Even for Minato, a password was required to enter. A gap opened in the barrier, and the dense forest ahead visibly appeared like a spatial gate torn open, filled with tents and bonfires. Jin entered with Minato. "Lord Minato has arrived." A sudden shout erupted, and the camp instantly became noisy, with countless figures swarming over. Namikaze Minato possessed extremely high prestige among Konoha ninjas, having long surpassed the Sannin. Kakashi signaled Jin at this moment, and he, along with Rin, quietly slipped away. Fortunately, in the darkness of the night, no one noticed Hyuga Jin, who had arrived at the camp with Minato. "We've traveled all day, let's go to the tent to rest. Following teacher Minato, we'll likely have a mission first thing tomorrow," Kakashi said. Just then, a group of people walked towards them, blocking their path. Kakashi and Rin were startled by the sight, having expected trouble for Hyuga Jin. Minato had specifically instructed them beforehand to take care of Hyuga Shin as much as possible. But soon, the two noticed a common characteristic among them. Byakugan. These people were all from the Hyuga clan. Can we speak alone for a moment? One of the Hyuga clan members asked Kakashi. Kakashi glanced at Jun beside him, then at Minato, who was surrounded by the crowd. After a moment of hesitation, he silently nodded. After Kakashi and Rin left, Jun and these Hyuga clan members entered a tent, which served as their temporary living quarters. The Hyuga ninja all knelt on one knee. Greetings, Lord Jun. There were only 7 or 8 people here. The Hyuga clan had many ninja on the front lines, but due to the Byakugan's significant strategic importance, they were mostly stationed at various forward outposts and frequently undertook missions. Lord Ayono from the village sent word that you and Minato Namikaze have arrived at the front lines. We will protect you with our lives. Jun's gaze swept over each of the people kneeling before him. Their ages varied, and each face was familiar. Among those of his age were Hyuga Homan and Hyuga Iroha, and older ones like Hyuga Kiyomi. His gaze suddenly stopped on a middle-aged Hyuga ninja. After scrutinizing him, he asked, "What is your name?" Replying to Lord Jun, Hyuga Takao, the man replied with his head bowed. Hyuga Takao, a member of the Hyuga branch family, was a jonin in the village. Jun immediately recalled various information about this person in his mind, but his eyes became somewhat dark and profound. "You don't need to protect me. I will be safe by Lord Minato's side. Just do more for the village." "Yes," everyone responded. "I came to the front lines only to do what I must." "You all do what you must as well." "Yes," everyone continued to respond. "All right, you can all leave now." These Hyuga clan members, like those in the village, had no objection to Jun's words. Takao, stay. Hyuga Takao, who was about to turn and leave with the others, paused and then remained in place. Only the two of them were left in the tent. "How did you discover me?" Hyuga Takao directly inquired. "Members of the Hyuga branch family all bear the caged bird seal. I only did not sense that aura on you," Jun said slowly. Upon hearing this, Hyuga Takao let out a light laugh. Then, his form shifted, transforming into the appearance of another person, blue-white long hair, a beard, and eyes with pure white pupils. This was no ordinary transformation jutsu, otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to hide here, evading Konoha's detection. He slowly spoke, introducing himself. "My name is Otsutsuki Kame." Looking at the transformation before him, Jun remained calm. From the moon, seeing Jun's lack of surprise, Kame's Byakugan immediately filled with fervor. "You truly are the destined one." The bloodline of Otsutsuki Hamura split into 2 branches. One branch is the Hyuga clan, where Shin is currently located, which has proliferated in the ninja world to this day. The other branch followed Hamura to the moon, inheriting the Otsutsuki surname, and was also divided into the main and branch families. Hamura's purpose in going to the moon was to guard the husk of the Ten-Tails, the Jido Mozo. After Hamura's death, a rift emerged between the main and branch families due to differing interpretations of Hamura's destiny. The main family sought to protect the ninja world created by the Sage of Six Paths, while the branch family believed that after 1,000 years of constant conflict among ninjas, the ninja world was no longer worthy of Hamura's protection and should be destroyed and restarted. Ultimately, the summoning of the Jido Mozo to Earth by Uchiha Madara, who had awakened the Rinnegan, completely triggered the war between the main and branch families. The main family was annihilated by the branch family's Tenseigan weapons, and the branch family also met its end. "Are you the only Otsutsuki left?" Shin asked. "My wife is still here," Otsutsuki Kame sighed softly. He had also seen the future, seeing his yet-to-be-born child, Toneri, following Hyuga Shin in the future. "Lord Shin, you are the person of destiny." "Destiny," Shin countered. "What destiny?" "The destiny of the branch family, or the destiny of the main family." Otsutsuki Kame's expression faltered. The destiny his branch family firmly believed in was that Hamura had grown weary of the ninjas on Earth and thus intended to destroy and restart the world. But was that truly the case? After 1,000 years of proliferation and development, the Otsutsuki on the moon had already become a vast clan. Within such a social group, there had always been distinctions in status between the main and branch families. How could this not breed resentment? The so-called destiny might just be an excuse. Otsutsuki Kamei knew this in his heart, and while astonished, he also felt a sense of shame. Lord Shin, do you know all of this? In the memories of the future, Hyuga Shin had also completely manufactured the Tenseigan weapons on his own. This made Otsutsuki Kamei even more convinced that Hyuga Shin was definitely the person of destiny. Was it because their ancestor Hamura had completely lost hope in the Otsutsuki clan that he bestowed destiny upon the Hyuga clan on Earth? Kamei thought dejectedly, looking at the black-haired, black-eyed youth before him. He slowly knelt on one knee, lowering his head. I do not know the destiny of our ancestor Hamura. I, too, was lost in that conflict, he said in a low voice. The Otsutsuki strayed from the path, leading to their current fate. I only beg that this last trace of bloodline does not end here. Lord Shin, I have come to atone. As he spoke, he slowly raised his head again, his pure white eyes filled with resolute determination. Please allow me to follow you. The night sky was as clear and blue as the sea, and the bright moon was as white as a mirror. Inside the main tent, Minato, Shikaku, and Choza sat together. You brought Hyuga Shin here? Shikaku asked, the two scars on his face giving him a somewhat stern appearance. Yes, I've let him join my squad, Minato replied. They had already conveyed some matters to each other in their letters. Shikaku was aware of Minato's decision and would not interfere forcefully. And what about Hyuga Hisashi? The Hokage has temporarily detained him, stating that judgment can be passed after the war. Is that so? Shikaku murmured to himself. Shikaku let out a light chuckle and muttered, for Danzo Shimura, it was imprisonment, for Orochimaru, it was also imprisonment. Now, Hyuga Hisashi killed Inoichi, and the Hokage is still only imprisoning him. Minato sighed. Shikaku, you must understand the Hokage's predicament. Shikaku tilted his head up and said blankly, of course, I understand. Konoha is facing enemies on 3 sides, and we cannot afford internal strife. Not only that, but we also desperately need the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan. If it were me, I would do the same. He then turned to Minato and asked calmly, I want to know, after the war, will someone be held accountable for Inoichi's death? After the war, Minato would succeed as the 4th Hokage. This was something everyone present knew. Shikaku was not asking about the 3rd Hokage's actions, but about Minato's. Those who have made mistakes will pay the price they deserve, Minato stated justly. Shikaku was speechless. After a moment, he pulled the map on the table towards him. Cloud Ninja have already entered the land of rice fields, and the estimated number of ninja they've brought is over 10,000. Reikage brothers. Minato's brow immediately furrowed. He had fought the current 4th Reikage before and knew how troublesome he was. The Cloud Village also possessed a perfect Jinchuriki of the 8 tails. Once deployed on the battlefield, the pressure on Konoha would be no less than that from Iwagakure. In future memories, after Konoha ended the war with Stone, the Cloud Village took advantage of Konoha's weakened state to invade again. The two sides eventually had a decisive battle at Kikyo Mountain. In the end, it was only through the combined efforts of himself, Jiraiya, Fugaku Ucha, and Shin Hyuga, along with the power of the Ninetails within Kushina, that they managed to win that battle with great difficulty. However, the current situation was completely different from that time. Not only was the Cloud Village an enemy, but there was also Iwagakure to the northwest, and the Sand Village to the southwest. Fugaku Ucha had already gone to the west of the Land of Fire, preparing to defend against the Sand Ninja invasion there. Jiraiya continued to remain at the frontline outpost, holding off Onoki. Shikaku was currently planning to divide his forces and send them to the border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Rice Fields to intercept the approaching Reikage brothers. Konoha, already weakened, now had to divide its forces into 3 fronts. The disparity in troop numbers was too great, and the lack of high-end combat power made it nearly impossible to win. If there were allies, the situation would be better. But most of the ninja nations were driven by self-interest and opportunism. Konoha had no allies at this time. The most ideal situation would be to defeat them one by one. Iwagakure's situation should be similar to ours. We should defeat them first, and then concentrate our forces to deal with Cloud and Sand, Shikaku continued. I'm afraid. If these three sides launch their offensive, we won't be able to hold on. Minato looked at the map on the desk and remained silent. Seeing this, Shikaku glanced at him and suddenly smiled, asking, "What, are you regretting not executing Shin Hyuga now?" Minato knew he was joking and simply said, "If only we had allies." Shikaku also sighed, "Yes, if only we had allies." The Sand Village, which was supposed to be an ally in the future memories, had now become an enemy because the fourth Kazekage Rosa was killed by Shin Hyuga. "When do we depart?" Minato asked again, referring to the division of forces. "Since you're here, you'll depart tomorrow," Shikaku said. "The sooner you arrive, the more prepared we can be." "All right." At dawn, as the sky was just beginning to lighten, Minato was awakened and informed that there was a situation outside the camp. He quickly got up and rushed out of the barrier. Within the dense forest, over a dozen Konoha ninja surrounded a figure clad in a black robe. A Konoha ninja lay at this person's feet, and the atmosphere was tense. The person said, "I have no hostile intentions." "You killed Runya," a Konoha ninja beside him shouted angrily. "He's not dead, he just fell asleep from my anesthetic." However, no one readily believed his words. The two sides were at a stalemate. Just as the atmosphere reached its peak of tension, Minato arrived. The Konoha ninja made way for Minato. "Are you the Yellow Flash?" the black-robed person asked in surprise. Minato first looked at the Konoha ninja at his feet and frowned slightly. The black-robed person immediately grabbed the ninja and threw him towards Minato. The Konoha ninja nearby quickly stepped forward to catch him. After examining him on the ground, they exclaimed in surprise, "Runya is indeed alive." "Who are you?" Minato finally asked. The black-robed person slowly pulled down his hood, revealing an exceptionally young and handsome face, with striking red hair. "I'm looking for Shin Hyuga." The original cover image is pinned in the comments section. Looking for Hinata Shin? Minato's thoughts raced, and he immediately guessed something. There were only two types of people interested in Hinata Shin now. One was Cloud Village, Tsunaga Cure, who came seeking revenge and wished Hinata Shin dead. The other type was likely similar to what the Hyuga clan thought, believing Hinata Shin to be the savior of the world and coming to follow him. Looking at the person before him, the probability of them seeking revenge seemed slim. As Minato pondered, the other party threw another scroll, which Minato caught steadily. "What is this?" Minato asked calmly. "You'll know when you look," the person said indifferently. Minato squeezed the scroll forcefully, confirmed there were no chakra fluctuations, and slowly unrolled it. His expression then froze, unable to suppress his shock. Because the content of the scroll was detailed information about Tsunaga Cure's troop movements, garrison locations, and the leaders of each unit. The other party had given it to him so easily, without even the pretense of negotiation. Minato's heart instantly doubted the authenticity of this information, but if it were an enemy's ploy, it would be too clumsy. "Where is Hinata Shin?" the red-haired boy asked again. "What do you want him for?" Minato countered sternly. "He can accomplish many things in the future, some of which happen to interest me," the other party said. At this moment, a Konoha ninja, Shunshin, arrived and whispered in Minato's ear, "No other enemies are approaching nearby." Minato scrutinized the very young-looking boy again and asked, "Who are you?" "My name is Sazori." Minato pondered for a moment and immediately realized something. "You are a rogue ninja from Tsunaga Cure?" "Yes," Sazori admitted without hesitation. In the ninja world, rogue ninjas were unwelcome anywhere. However, the current relationship between Konoha and Tsunaga Cure seemed to be Sasori's confidence in daring to come. Minato proposed a condition: "I can take you to see him, but you must surrender and accept our control." "Impossible," Sazori refused outright. "I have already offered an exchange." Minato, however, said, "With just this information, whose truthfulness is unknown, you expect us to believe you so easily." Sazori said indifferently, "That is your own magnanimity." Magnanimity? Minato's gaze deepened slightly. Asterisk swish asterisk the wind rustled the leaves in the forest. No one spoke, and both sides remained in a standoff. After a short while, Minato said to a Konoha ninja beside him, "Go tell Kakashi to bring Hinata Shin out." Yes, then Minato raised his voice slightly and said to the Konoha ninjas, "You all go back first." The barrier was opened again, and the ninjas who had surrounded Sasori returned to the camp. Soon after, Kakashi appeared with Hinata Shin. "Lord Minato," Shin greeted Minato first. Minato said, "Shin, this person specifically asked to see you." The moment Shin came out, he saw Sasori standing there. That head of red hair was too striking. There were very few people with red hair in the ninja world. Looking at the person's age and appearance, Shin had already guessed his identity. "I don't know him," Shin said, shaking his head. "He knows you. Doesn't everyone in this world know me?" Sasori was also observing the black-haired youth. After confirming it was the person from his memory, he also took the initiative to introduce himself. "My name is Sasori." Saying this, he took out another scroll, held it horizontally, and gently unrolled it, revealing the seal patterns to Shin and Minato. A prominent 3 character was visible on it. Asterisk bang, asterisk white smoke erupted. Kakashi instantly became vigilant, thinking the other party was about to attack. As the smoke dissipated, a puppet that looked extremely similar to a living person appeared beside Sasori. Seeing this, Minato's gaze immediately sharpened. Sasori slowly said, "This is the third Hokage, who died by my hand. I made him into a unique human puppet. This puppet can replicate his ninjutsu from when he was alive." He raised a hand, and chakra extended from his fingers, connecting to the puppet. Then, the Hokage puppet rose into the air, conjured over a dozen iron sand spears, and with a swish, they rained down from high above, densely piercing the ground in front of Shin. Sasori seemed to have done it deliberately to showcase his masterpiece, and he manipulated the Hokage puppet back to his side. The long spears formed from iron sand then scattered into black iron sand, diffusing into the air. "How is it?" Sasori's eyes were fixed on Shin, as if trying to see a hint of amazement on his face. But unfortunately, he was disappointed. "Very good," Shin nodded gently, his tone indifferent. Sasori's expression darkened slightly, and the ceiling puppet beside him disappeared with a bang into white smoke. Meanwhile, Minato had already frowned. In his opinion, turning people into puppets was an extremely cruel act. This Sasori was a rogue ninja from Tsunagakure, who had personally killed his own Hokage, thus triggering the outbreak of the Third Great Ninja War. He could be considered a person of extreme evil. Sasori then said to Shin, "We can explore the eternal mysteries of machinery and life together. In the future, Hinata Shin, utilizing the puppet techniques of the Otsutsuki on the moon, Kabuto Yakushi's human biological technology, and the chakra of the tailed beasts, created supergiant mechs similar to EVA units, which became his capital for dominating the world." This was not a fantastical or unrealistic matter. Shin remembered that in the more distant future of the original Naruto story, the ninja world had also developed technologies such as computers and even artificial humans. Sasori believed he was negotiating with Hinata Shin, which was one of the reasons he had come here. However, Shin no longer paid attention to him and instead asked Minato, "Lord Minato, how should this rogue ninja from Tsunagakure be dealt with?" Minato was also slightly surprised. "He came looking for you," Shin retorted with a strange expression. "Isn't he someone who poses a threat to the village?" Sasori frowned as he listened to their conversation. In the next moment, he suddenly thought that in the future, this Minato Namikaze and Hinata Shin seemed to be in an adversarial relationship, so now. Minato pondered, "Do you want to be a friend of Konoha?" Sasori didn't care about Konoha, but he realized that Hinata Shin's current situation might not be very good. "Yes," he said indifferently. Weren't the things just now enough to show sincerity? He was referring to the intelligence from the Sand Shinobi. If the information in that scroll was true, it would undoubtedly be of immense help to Konoha. Minato thought of Konoha's current predicament. Despite his dislike for the person before him, he still said, "If the intelligence you provide is all true, then Konoha can acknowledge you as a friend." Sasori continued, "Konoha's destruction would do me no good. On the contrary, I would be happy to see Tsunagakure stumble. Listening to Sasori's words, Shin suddenly thought that Sasori's parents seemed to have died at the hands of White Fang. But it didn't matter. This guy had come so openly. Even if he truly wanted to follow him, it would be of no use to Shin at the moment. Too foolish. Shin stood quietly beside Minato, not saying a word. In the end, Sasori and Minato reached an agreement. Sasori would be allowed to enter Konoha's camp, but he would need to be placed under surveillance with a sealing jutsu. Only after Konoha confirmed the authenticity of the intelligence regarding the Sand Shinobi would the two parties officially become friends and cooperate. Initially, Sasori was unwilling. However, since he had already learned the location of Konoha's encampment, Minato could not let him leave easily. If he insisted on leaving, a battle would inevitably occur. No matter how confident he was, he could not leave safely when facing the Yellow Flash and thousands of Konoha soldiers. Having no other choice, he chose to compromise. Minato was already a master of sealing jutsu, so he didn't need to rely on others for this. The group returned to the encampment. Just as Minato was taking the intelligence provided by Sasori to meet Shikaku, Shikaku handed him a letter first. "This is from Lord Jiraiya." Minato took it and looked at it, his eyes showing surprise. "This is an ally." Shikaku nodded gently. Lord Jiraiya said it's an ally of a dozen people. It could only be said to be better than nothing. Minato looked at the contents of the letter again. Considering that this was a letter personally written by his teacher, he asked, "Are they special in any way?" Shikaku, however, retorted, "That Sasori of the Red Sand, he came for Hinata Shin, didn't he?" Minato nodded and handed over Sasori's scroll. Shikaku then sighed. This mercenary organization called Akatsuki should also be coming for him. The cover is pinned in the comment section. The pinned comment is in the very narrow space above the first comment, with a line of text that says pinned. You can see it by clicking on it. Minato and Shikaku issued orders, and more than half of the ninjas in the camp set out to establish a frontline outpost at the border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Rice Fields. Nearly 3,000 ninjas set off in a grand procession. Minato, as the overall commander, led the vanguard, with Shin following along. Shikaku could only divide their forces. Considering the strength of the Cloud Ninjas, 3,000 troops was the most they could spare compared to Jiraiya and Fugaku Uchiha's forces. After such a long war, Konoha had fewer than 10,000 ninjas deployed to the front lines. Many had sacrificed their lives, and many others had been severely injured on the front lines and retreated to the village, losing their combat effectiveness. Even combining the forces from the three locations to face a single village was not considered an advantage. Now, dividing them into three further weakened Konoha's defensive line. In the coming war, Konoha would no longer hold the initiative. To reach the border earlier, Minato did not slow down too much, and Shin could only follow with great effort, trailing at the very back of the vanguard. They traveled without rest, but fortunately, the total distance was not long. After arriving here, Minato immediately began to scout the terrain with Kakashi. Shin rested for a moment and then followed. The main force arrived 2 hours later. After handing over with the border ninjas stationed there, they began to re-establish camp and deploy defenses. And accompanying them was that mercenary ninja group called Akatsuki. Their leader was an extremely young male, estimated to be around Sasori's age, perhaps 17 or 18, with short orange hair and a perpetually bright and cheerful smile. These individuals wore matching black robes but did not wear headbands. "You are the Yellow Flash, Lord Minato Namikaze, aren't you?" Yahiko ran up to Minato with great familiarity, greeting him enthusiastically. "Are you Mr. Yahiko?" Yes, Yahiko shook Minato's hand, as if he had met a celebrity. "We are all students of Master Jiraiya." The other two also came to Yahiko's side, another red-haired boy and a beautiful girl with short, light blue hair. Minato's eyes immediately fixed on Nagato. His special eyes were hard to ignore. "This is Nagato, and this is Conan. We are all fellow disciples." "Hello," Minato nodded gently. After some pleasantries, Minato spoke in a formal tone, "Thank you for being willing to help Konoha at this time." Yahiko scratched his head, looking a little embarrassed. We came here also with half an intention of seeking refuge. Oh, Yahiko sighed. Hanzo of the Salamander has issued a bounty on us, and it's becoming very difficult for us to establish ourselves in the land of rain. Minato pondered inwardly, his expression unchanged. Are you wishing to join Konoha? His gaze swept over the other members of the Akatsuki. He didn't know much about Akatsuki's methods, but the background of mercenary ninjas was usually not very clean. Yahiko immediately said, "We wouldn't dare to have such an extravagant request. We only hope that after the war, we can temporarily stay within the land of fire." Only then did Minato nod. "That is certainly not a problem. Thank you, Lord Minato." Yahiko beamed with joy. Minato also smiled. "Since we are fellow disciples, don't be so formal. Just call me Minato. By the way, Mr. Minato, I'd like to inquire about someone." Minato's eyes flickered. "Hinata Shin." Yahiko smiled honestly. "You guessed it perfectly." Minato smiled and then gestured towards a figure in the distance who was helping to set up camp. "He's over there. Is it convenient for me to go and have a chat with him?" "Please do." Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan walked over together. Minato stood there, lost in thought. These people who were coming for Hinata Shin would likely increase in the future. Once followers increased, their thoughts might slowly change. Minato looked at the figure in the distance with a calm expression. Shin was in the process of hammering a wooden stake into the ground when a voice suddenly sounded in his ear. "Are you Hinata Shin?" He turned to look. Orange hair, red hair, blue hair, Rinnegan, paper flower. "Is there something?" "Hello, my name is Yahiko. This is Nagato and Konan. In the future, Hinata Shin would help them take control of a megacure and eliminate Hanzo of the Salamander. And after Hinata Shin swept away the 5 great nations and unified the world, the 3 of them also became Hinata Shin's subordinates. World peace, this was a wish Yahiko dared not even dream of. He knew he lacked the courage and ability to properly govern the land of rain in the future. That was already his lifelong aspiration. Hinata Shin achieved what he could not. Looking at the boy before him, who was even younger than himself, Yahiko was momentarily lost in thought. "If there's nothing else, please don't hinder my work," Shin said. Yahiko suddenly snapped back to reality. Seeing that no one else was around, he couldn't help but ask, "Will you still do what you did in the future?" Shin calmly replied, "That is merely the me you imagine, not the true me. This world needs a savior," Yahiko immediately said. "War should have been eradicated long ago. Killing should stop, and people shouldn't be like this towards each other." Yahiko's emotions suddenly became a little agitated, but Shin interrupted his urge to appeal to a vision. "You are right." He looked directly into Yahiko's eyes and said calmly, "I also believe Lord Minato will be such a person." With that, he turned around and continued to hammer the wooden stake with his hammer. After a brief moment of daze, Yahiko suddenly smiled. "We were presumptuous. I really couldn't resist wanting to meet you. Perhaps I've caused you trouble. I'm truly sorry." He could tell that Shin did not wish to attract attention at the moment. Konoha was likely under countless gazes, and he probably felt like a thorn in his side at all times. "It's all right." Shin slowly shook his head. "You are here to help Konoha fight, aren't you?" Yahiko nodded. "It is I who should thank you." Yahiko hesitated for a moment, then said, "If there is anything you need us for, please do not hesitate to ask." Shin did not respond, continuing his work. Seeing this, the 3 of them could only turn and leave. The temporary camp was soon built. Minato dispatched many reconnaissance teams. Shin, having lost his Byakugan, was not suited for such tasks and remained at the camp. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. There was no campfire in the camp, making it appear particularly desolate. Shin emerged from his tent to relieve himself. As he walked towards a large tree, a figure silently appeared near him. "Your Highness Shin, the Cloud Ninja's forces are nearly 4 times our defensive line's strength. They are all currently stationed within the land of rice fields. If they launch a full-scale offensive, our chances of holding them back are extremely low." Shin did not respond. After finishing, he returned to his tent to sleep. When it was not his place to speak or act, he would not do anything superfluous. But he was never the one to make the choices. No matter how many people died, it would not disturb his dreams.